Thank you for the introduction. Even though I've been making presentations for 40 years, this is my first time on the podium of an opera house. So I'm happy to be here on a very important and serious theme. I've been working in business in about 40 years. Most of the time I've spent in Norsk Hydro, but I've been in NHO, I've been in SAS, and I've been in mechanical engineering. So I've been around, and everywhere where I've been, the issues of sustainability has been an issue for all of the 40 years I've been working. In 1970, when I started, it's 40 years ago, and it's about 40 years until 2050, which Per Sandberg spoke about. But even in 1970, we had a number of sustainability issues. We only didn't call them that, because that phrase or terminology came into the picture in 1992 in Rio through the Brundtland report. So the good news, looking at the 40 years I have been participating in this discussion, is that quite a few of the sustainability issues we faced in 1970 has been solved. Quite a few had disappeared because it turned out that in reality it might not be quite as big a problem as it appeared to be. And some we are still in the process of working with, and we will be in that process for some time to come. However, the bad news is that as you are solving the problems you have defined, new problems are coming up. And I do believe that Per Sandberg's and Vision 2050's description of the challenges is pretty accurate, based upon sound analytical work, and ending up with a conclusion and a target for 2050, which is very difficult not to share, namely that 9 billion people need to live well on resources which the planet can deliver without being further depleted. So far, so good. Listening to Per reminds me a little bit about a strategy which to me is very precise, very clear, and very simple. It was created in the second half of the 19th century by Minister William Booth, creating the Salvation Army. The strategy is soup, soap, and salvation, and in that order. And I do believe that's relevant today, not only for the Salvation Army. So it's the same strategy, as far as I can see it today, as it was 130 years ago. And I suspect that when we meet again in 2050, even if we have solved what Per Sandberg has described, there will be some new issues coming up. What is different from before is that things are changing much faster. We have always said that, and it's always been true in the time I've been in business. But it has been a paradigm shift, and technology, globalization, crises we haven't seen before in exactly the form we have had them now, they are coming so quickly and are so hard to predict that the momentum of things is more difficult to cope with. And it happens in a world which has become quite a bit more complex. The issues, take for instance the climate change issue, is much, much more complex to solve and to get moving on, because they require some sort of a global governance, and it happens in a time when we do not have that global governance. So the aspect of globalization, driving things, at the same time as we do not have a governance system to handle requirements from globalization, is a major challenge, and it will continue to be so for quite a few years to come. Which is something which also indicates that when Per Sandberg is talking about business as usual, if I look around myself at issues concerning business, concerning civil society, and concerning governments, business as usual is probably the last terminology I would use. The problem is that it is not business as usual. And the unexpected is coming up quarter by quarter, year by year, and I suspect it will continue to do so. That also means that even though I agree completely that to solve the major challenges presented in Vision 2050, we need partnership. However, the partners may, for the time being, have different things on their mind and on their table than the things we are discussing here, and I think perhaps that's what Wim Koch referred to initially. And it's very hard to criticize it, because there is no alternative to handling the financial crisis, and there exists no recipe. There is no alternative to handle the debt crisis in Europe, and for that matter elsewhere. It has to be handled, and there is no recipe available. And as it has turned out, that even within the European Union, in reality there is no governance system, not even within the European Union, to handle it. Which means that time, energy, the need to force people together that don't want to be forced together, it's a challenge which are very mind-absorbing. And it means, as we all know when we have a problem, that if you have a real problem, you need to do something about, and you need to do it now, other problems are fading away until you have saved the fundamental problem you are facing now. And I do believe that in these days, and I suspect these days will continue for a while, we have to live with a situation where the partnerships will be difficult to form in the binding manner. I do believe that business, in a sense, is privileged in playing their role. And I do believe that good companies, because we are not talking about business at large, we are talking about good companies doing specific things. And we will hear more about them today. But those specific things can be handled in the company because they do have a governance system. They do know that they have to address the battle going on presently. They do know that they need to report about their achievements and their failures. They do know that they need to learn from it. And they do know that they have to look upstream for what is coming ahead them, towards them in the longer perspective. And the good companies will see and understand, as the companies in Per Sandberg's group has seen, that if they do not include the sustainability issues in what they perceive coming towards them and which they need to deal with as part of their strategy, they will fail. It has to start somewhere. It has started somewhere. And what we will see, I believe, is that the more individual companies, big and large, European, American, Asian, that understands that, the more innovation we will see addressing the critical issue. And we are seeing it happen, and that is, in a way, to me, for the time being, the most optimistic starting point I can see for moving ahead. So I think President Lund is right in saying that business has the potential, and some businesses have grabbed it, to represent the solution more than the problem. Thank you.